it's George from Ireland, so welcome back to my channel. So the news broke this morning, to the surprise of many people, that Boris Johnson's facing a vote of confidence in his leadership of the Conservative Party immediately. So there's been news been building for a time. The first letters were submitted just after New Year, but it was nowhere near the threshold of 54. Remember, I told you about a week ago that the number had reached 38. Now, I'm not certain that was the case, but I was correct in thinking it wasn't far off. Although it has come sooner than I anticipated, and actually from the anti-Boris camp, this is probably premature. So it was inevitable he's going to face a leadership vote at some point this year, and therefore it's better for him to get out of the way sooner. Then he stands a much better chance of survival, because the plotters would have liked to delay till at least the 23rd of June, that being a Thursday. Elections in this realm are always held on the Thursday. Two by-elections are being staged on the same day, one in Wakefield and one in Tiverton. Wakefield caused by the the incarceration of the Conservative MP there, who had been sent to jail for sexual contact with a minor. And in Tiverton, where the MP there, he resigned from Parliament because he was caught watching pornography in the House of Commons. So they're both left under a cloud anyway. So the opinion polls show that the Conservatives are 20 percentage points behind Labour. So that means the Tory party would not just lose the next election, but be smashed. It would be a defeat worse than 1997. Now, I know that's midterm blues, 2.5 years to go, almost. So you would expect the Conservative Party to recoup some of that loss. But you can turn around 5%, 10%. I don't see how the Conservative Party can turn around 20%. Probably go up a bit but it's bad, and it's much worse than it was at the 5th of May, the local elections only a month ago, partly because the Sugre report has come out. The saliency of the Ukraine conflict has declined, because that's been going on for 103 days now. Anyway, and Boris really has handled the situation well. And nothing is going particularly well. You know, there's high inflation, there's a cost of living crisis, there are shortages of workers in certain sectors, the NHS is struggling, the police not doing particularly well, education's going fantastically. I know these things aren't cataclysmic, but the totality of that is a very sour mood among the public for the governing party. And the Royal College of Nursing, they just sent Boris Johnson a 7-foot-long letter telling him to get a grip. Anyway, so it's looking bad for him. But remember, all he needs is a simple majority of MPs to vote for him, and he'll survive. Because there's something like 360 Conservative MPs, only 54 have signed this signed letter saying the vote of confidence needs to be held. That's 15% of them. 85% of them have not signed such things. And okay, they don't need to. As soon as you reach that 15% threshold, that automatically triggers the vote of confidence. Now, Theresa May faced a vote of confidence, and she won 63% of the MPs' support on her side. So Bojo, I think, will be somewhere around there. I think he'll survive. I give him a fairly high chance of survival. I give him a 65% chance of survival. Had this been held after the 23rd of May, it might be lower. Wakefield will almost certainly revert to Labour. It was Labour held since, I think, 1932. Conservatives took it in 2019, you know, part of that Brexit election, that blue wave in Northern England. It's a Yorkshire seat. At Tiverton, there's some chance the Liberal Democrats will go get it. I think they won't quite, actually. The Liberal Democrats, Southwest used to be a strong region for them. They're not particularly popular in Tiverton, and I could be mistaken. And the reason why the Conservative MP stood down there was not as bad as what the guy in Wakefield did. Anyway, so Boris Johnson will do everything to stay at number 10 Downing Street. He has got no common decency. He wanted to be world king as a toddler, as his sister Rachel told the world, and he is as close to being world king as he's ever going to get, and they will have to drag him out of there. He'll be holding on by his fingernails. So this thing's going to go on and on. Even if he survives this leadership election, more is going to come out. So it's looking really bad for him. There's this Standards and Privileges Committee of the House of Commons looking at his behaviour. Did he lie? He's tried to have the ministerial code rewritten to say that, you know, he shouldn't have to go despite all his disgraceful misconduct, his endless mendacity, his utterly unconscionable behaviour. So I don't know how he can divert attention from this. The man who thought he understood the media instinctively, as a former journalist, former editor of The Spectator, magazine, and so on. But the opinion polls are so bad that Boris Johnson would lose his own seat, Uxbridge. I don't think he would actually, but if his 20% swing was across the board, he would lose his constituency. People like being represented by famous MPs, so no MPs lost his or her seat since I think 1906. Anyway, so the Conservatives have been thinking sort of no change, no chance. We have to stay on. Boris does have his backers. Obviously, all the ministers are staying on board. And as Nadine Dorries said, the Culture Secretary, well, 14 million people voted for Boris Johnson. He is the Prime Minister. She stay on to the next election. Okay, but what about the Conservative Party own rules, Nadine, the party you've chosen to join? The MPs, they do have the right to kick him out. I don't think they're going to on this occasion. The situation isn't quite bad enough. So they would left it till July, when presumably unpopularity would have built a bit more, Ukraine would have faded a bit more, and so on, then that might have been enough. And so who's the obvious successor? I mean, but Bojo would say the plotters are without a plan. Well, I mean, you're spoilt for choice, really. The front runners are seen to be Ben Wallace, Liz Truss, Priti Patel. The people who also talked about Penny Mordaunt, surprisingly. Dominic Raab thought not to be a contender, which is why Bojo gave him that high office. He's seen as unthreatening. Rishi Sunak would have been until Christmas, but of course he's blotted his copybook. Now, were this election to be held a year from now, I suspect that the Sunak's reputation would have recovered a great deal. So Bojo would like to have this out of the way. The election is going to be held about 9 o'clock tonight, and the results straight away. And if he loses, that's it. He's out as leader. He can stay under caretaker capacity. An election for the new leader of the Conservative Party would be held. That could take up to 2 months. The Conservative Party, well, those who want to be leader have to have at least 8 MPs to nominate them, and they go forward and the MPs vote, and the least popular ones are eliminated several rounds. They whittle it down to only 2, and they put those to the mass membership. 300, 1,000 ordinary people are members of the Conservative Party. The idea of whittling it down to only 2 candidates means that then it's someone the parliamentary party can work with, rather than lumping the MPs with someone they can't abide, as the Labour's had that before. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of hostility against Bojo, and I don't think it was going to diminish. But as I say, I suspect he will hang on, and if he wins this election, this vote of confidence, then he can't be challenged for a further year. So where we'll be in June 2023, I don't think that it will be much better for the Conservatives. It would be possibly even worse. So that's why the survival instinct of the Conservative Unionist Party has kicked in. Some of them say he's a liability. He's no longer the asset he was. I mean, I know previously he reached out to people who wouldn't consider voting Conservative under ordinary circumstances. And he was a fantastic communicator. People say, what a character. His conviviality won people around. He could just charm people into overlooking his many flaws, dishonesties, and improprieties. So that's it. Remember where you heard it first. I reckon he'll hang on. And I reckon he'll get 65% of the vote of Conservative MPs. Goodbye.